It's Chris Beyer.
Hey, it's Chris Bowling.
We are CB Squared. Hello, everyone. How you doing, Mr. Bowling?
I am well. How about you?
I'm having a great time. Today, we're going to talk about blueprints. So I know so far in our conversation, we've talked about what's the journey look like for an employer wanting to work with CB Squared. I know we kicked that off with what the introduction meeting looks like, that 20 minutes of hearing the goals and the objectives that CFO, HR director, CEO wants to accomplish. And we talked the next time about what that discovery meeting looks like, getting that group of key employees together and listening and asking what can be better, what can improve, what's holding you back, and then identify those levers that they can pull to improve their spend and reallocate money to the right efforts. And after we get done with that discovery meeting, Chris, you and I spend a lot of time that we didn't put in this video, but what do we do at that point again? What's right after discovery?
Well, you and I get the pleasure of spending how many hours together?
Dozens usually for
dozens
for an employer.
Of really going back and listening to that discovery meeting and then pulling pieces out.
Yeah.
And we really are looking at three things. You know, what are their strengths? What are their obstacles? And what opportunities sit out there for this employer that they can really improve on? And you know, we keep listening to it over and over and over and said, okay, did we hear this or are we hearing this? Right. And, you know, sometimes we have to go back and, you know, qualify of, okay, you know, HR, we heard you say this, can you expand on that? Because, you know, we have said this over and over, if we don't get the blueprint right, then the meeting stops and let's redo this because it is their document. You know, this isn't for us, it is for them.
Right. And I think that's so key that we're asking for that clarification because, you know, you and I are both in sales. We like to talk. I mean, it's a hard thing for us to do sometimes is just shut up and listen. And we've really done well with that in those discovery meetings where we are listening, we're asking those continued questions, and then we want to hear that full perspective. But even still, that response may not be the true response. We've got to dig a little bit deeper. And when we do, I think that's when we can do our best work is you and I spend a lot of time together listening, identifying what those top priorities are, and then laying out what we see could be accomplished in that first year, 2 years, if that employer group does want to move forward with that blueprint strategy. So no, CB, you've got that a sample to show.
I do.
So we can use that screen share here today.
Yeah. So look at me in technology, right?
That's so let's put it in your hands.
Yeah. So before we share that, let's kind of go through a timeline. So
good point.
That intro call, Chris, takes 15 to 25 minutes, right? It's really up to them how long they want that.
And most of those we've done virtually. It's not that we can't do it in person, but we've been able to really expand who we can talk to because of this format. It's been helpful.
Yeah. And then that discovery meeting, Chris, normally takes 60 to 90 minutes. We would love to have it done in 60, but again, we are not in control of this. It's really all we're going to do is ask the questions, and you know, the more time they help, you know, explaining how they're doing things. So, you know, we've had some finish in 60 minutes, and we've had some, you know, certainly go for 90 minutes.
Way over. But that also has been virtual. We've had that with everyone on the screen, so we can get the whole group together. We've also done that in person, properly distanced, and you know, as that employer feels comfortable. Either way, it's the interaction that we're looking for. We want to see how that team works with each other and how they play off of each other's comments too.
Yeah. So now we're at the blueprint, and this, you know, again, can take between 60 and 90 minutes. It's so I'll share my screen and.
I need some filler music while we're waiting on that, don't we? Okay, there we go. All right. Make that full screen. Start from the beginning of that slide.
It looks full screen to me, but I don't think it's full screen. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. Again, poor Buyer's got to deal with Bowling's technology.
It's all right.
Or lack of, I should say.
So again, nothing crazy, but Chris, when we bring this back, we're either putting this on the screen for the employer for delivering this virtually, but we are sending the actual document. It's printed. It's that big. It's truly on a large format, so it feels and looks like a blueprint. I know that's kind of kind of weird, but at the same time, we want it to be noticeable. And we want it to be something that is meaningful. It's not just a report. It's truly a large document that we're going to go through. But let's go to that second page. Again, we've taken out all the information about an employer in this case, but this is that key component of what makes a blueprint work. Did we get it right is always the question. We want that employer group of key decision makers and executives to read through this and figure out, did we get it, and tell us what we missed. And often it's, the strengths are at the top because we want to reinforce those. We don't want to change everything. If that employer is doing something really well, continue. We don't want to tell you that you need to change everything. But, in this case, this employer is going to read through and see that they've got a challenge with compliance and regulatory. I mean, gosh, Chris, how many of our employer groups have had that happen in the last 18 months with COVID, with all those things, plus just the normal day-to-day of compliance?
Most.
In this case, dealing with paper HR enrollment process for benefits. Again, not every employer is dealing with technology yet. And then employees really don't understand their benefit program. Those were the three things that we heard, not only from 1, 2, but 3 in that meeting. And then Chris, what's on the right side? Why do we have those side by side?
You bet. So now we like to focus on, what are those opportunities? So it's kind of what Chris and I were talking about. I want to say in our, intro call, this isn't about us bringing in a tool chest and saying, this is everything we have, look at it, it's, shiny. It's really saying, if this is the obstacle holding you back from being a high performing health plan, here are some opportunities of where we believe we can make some improvement. If you're a 4 on this, how do we get you to a 7 and then eventually move that to an 8? So, each one of these are really piggybacking off. If your danger was compliance, okay, well, how can we help you get more comfortable with where you sit, currently today? And, after this page, which, we're not going to show you, is we actually dig into each one of these one by one and show you, okay, here are 1 or 2 or 3 options that we have clients using today that have solved this problem. Again, we're not here to recommend one thing, but what we're saying is, let us do our job, which is, if technology is really where you want to move to and you want to get rid of paper, we don't feel it's our job to say, well, here is the solution. It's, let's figure out what you need. Who do you have as your payroll vendor? Is there going to be seamless interaction? Who are your carriers? Because, Chris, as you and I know,
what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, we've ran into, scenarios with, they're with a carrier that no one can actually connect with. So, our job after that, once we're hired, is really run that RFP for them to find that one vendor.
And that's where, you talk about that tool chest. We have all of those. That's what we said earlier, is as Assured Partners, we've got it all. And if it's something that isn't what we do, we have those relationships with those organizations that do. But it's us saying, like you said, here's what you said, here's what we know can help fix it that other high performing plans are doing. And now let's figure out how you want to implement it. Because I think that's the key of it too, is now each of those pages following where we show a tool or a resource and what that impact will be to the organization. We also want to bring in a timeline, and that timeline of, we can't do all of this in the first month. We can't do all of this maybe in the first year, because these might be things that we think are valuable, but that employer says, you know what, we've got this going on. Again, it's not about us. It never has been. This is their blueprint to help them be higher performing. And often this does lead to us being hired.
Right.
Well, no, I'm excited that we'll show maybe next video, we'll talk through a little bit more about what that process looks like should an employer want to hire us, and how that steps on to onboarding with Chris and I and the Assured Partners team. So we appreciate you tuning in today. Thanks so much.
We'll see you.